Hey guys, this is Drax with my thoughts on the Combined Arms Initiative and how it affected PlanetSide 2. Back in February, Daybreak announced that they would be working on the Combined Arms Initiative. I actually covered this announcement and gave my thoughts on it back then. You may remember the video if you've been a subscriber on the channel for a while. This was a plan to make infantry versus vehicle and vehicle versus vehicle fights more enjoyable. At the time, they had 5 goals they wanted to achieve to make this happen. Number 1, more territory goals for vehicles. 2, vehicles that are more fun to use. 3, meaningful vehicle infantry interactions. 4, the removal of continent and facility vehicle benefits and restrictions. And number 5, to incentivize coordination and transportation. So did they achieve these goals? Well, I'm going to split these points up and we'll take a detailed look at them now. What we have to remember though is that the dev team is still working with Combined Arms and we can expect more changes in the future. With that said, let's start from the top. Number 1, more territory goals for vehicles. This was achieved at some bases like the Crown, Ickenham Biolab, Howling Pass, and I think maybe a few more, with those special capture points positioned on the outside of facilities. Specifically, Ickenham made use of these, with 2 outside points being the main way to gain control over the new biolab. So it's a good start with those capture points at some facilities, but to truly incorporate vehicles into territory, I would definitely like to see more of these. There were plans for one at Indar X and one at Quartz Ridge, but sadly those were scrapped. So in all, we have a few more territory goals for vehicles, but not many at this time. On to number 2, this being vehicles that are more fun to use. I think they definitely achieved this in some ways, but overall I think the fun has been transferred more in the infantry versus armour direction, and we'll talk about that more on the next point. But as for vehicles being more fun, I can only say that is true in a few cases. Tanks and harassers, I'm not too sure. All I know is that everyone runs Hesh these days. In the Flash's case, I've seen some footage with the Fury grenade launcher and a heavy on the back, and although it looks like a lot of fun, there seems to be some imbalance there. They're able to output more damage than what a tank would with a gunner. The ESF was pretty good for a while, until the last update hit. And the worst hit vehicle out of all of this was probably the Liberator. Not only did its flagship weapon, the Dalton, get a hefty nerf, the Liberator itself became weaker against other aircraft. Now I don't fly Libs at all, but I have spoken to a fair amount of pilots, and from what they are telling me, the Lib is a no-no right now. As a gunner, the only weapon that I feel is viable currently is the Shredder. The Dalton is in such a bad place that it doesn't really perform well against anything. That's not to say that it's absolutely useless, but I have far better results with the Shredder. The Liberator has gone from a gunship to a support aircraft. Now this doesn't bother me too much because I mostly play infantry these days, but I still felt like I should put some thoughts in the video to represent what the Lib pilots might be feeling. Currently, if you want to fly, I would say the Fighter or the Valkyrie are the better options. Point 3 was that we would have more meaningful vehicle v infantry interactions. This pretty much meant fights between the two would take longer, one side won't get destroyed too quickly, and overall it should feel like a fair and balanced system for all sides. Is that the way it feels currently? In most cases I feel like they've done a good job with this, taking a load of old resistances, removing a ton of them, including those that relate to vehicle v vehicle fights, and in probably 80% of the cases balancing it well. A few are a bit off though. In some cases damage seems too high, and in other cases damage feels too low. A point was made on Reddit the other day that maybe the old resistance type were there for a reason. Daybreak has already responded to questions about damage values with some changes already, and we'll probably see some more changes in the near future. The 4th point was the removal of continent and facility vehicle benefits and restrictions. Now this one had me confused throughout the whole process. The continent benefits were changed up, so for example one side couldn't PO too many aircraft when they had the old Indar bonus. I heard a few were upset with this change, as the bonus would allow newer pilots to PO fighters more often to learn the ropes. The problem was this also meant good pilots could PO just as many fighters or Libs and then have air dominance, so I understood the change there, and to other continent benefits that worked in a similar fashion. The confusion came when they reworked the facility benefits. Specifically here talking about tech plants. They originally took away the MBT spawn privilege a tech plant gave and replaced it with something called Anvil. This Anvil system would allow you to drop a stock flash into any connected region to a tech plant. Overall it seemed to be a good idea, and with a few tweaks could have worked out well, but for some reason they reverted this change, removing Anvil totally and adding Liberator spawns to the tech plant instead. As said in a previous video, it's not so bad on most continents, but on Esamir controlling Isa is a big deal and can be quite a game changer. So overall for the fourth point here, I have to put it down as a partial failure. The fifth point was to incentivize coordination and transportation. Now I'm not really sure this one even got looked at yet. Maybe it's one of those aspects that they haven't got to. I think we have an implant coming called Logistics Specialist, and that might have an impact on transportation. But other than that, not much to say on this one. So no, I don't think it went exactly to plan. Yes, some changes were a step in the right direction, but others left me asking why. And I want to make a few points here. Some of these changes have both a positive and a negative side. So for rocket launchers, all but one can no longer one-shot. I'm not sure why the decimator was left out of this group, but that is how it is. What I hoped was that the directive for the launcher would then get changed to XP. Maybe those vehicle damage ticks or simply less kills, because unlocking the Kraken launcher now is simply not going to happen unless you are extremely dedicated to doing so. And to think about it, if someone was going faux rocket primary before, it was because they wanted that launcher. Then we had the Delta no longer one-shotting newer pilots. I know this is a sore spot for lib pilots, but I have to mention it as I can relate to it, because I had friends who were new to the air game looking for a good fight and they were instantly getting wrecked by the Dotan, and then this led them to quit flying altogether. Now I understand the change for the Dotan as it was in line with the goals of one side not getting destroyed too quickly, but what I didn't get was all the other changes that they made to the lib, overall making it feel more like a support vehicle and ruin that gameplay style for a lot of Liberator pilots. And then the tanks, especially MBTs, used to require a certain playstyle, get in, do your damage, possibly take out a few guys and then get out. The problem now with weaker damage, you start shooting to target, he turns, others can start noticing and the fight can become a bit stale. I understand one side not getting destroyed too quickly, but the fact that you could destroy tanks easier before this update made dealing with those Zergs a bit easier. And any tank fights that take place over range are pretty dull now as well. Almost feels like past a certain distance the shell should do more damage to keep those fights entertaining. But how about what Combined Arms did for the light assault? The C4 was nerfed in splash damage with 2 bricks only just about killing an MBT. But now the trigger mechanic has been smoothed out and those ambusher jump jets were added as well. C4 instantly triggering when clicked, yeah it's great, no longer dying to maxes that rush me. But this also applied to tank killing and simply put it's so much easier than before. With the rocket rifle as well, the light assault was a scary class to deal with before the update, but now they can come at you so fast with those ambusher jump jets that tanks are often just an easy target. I don't want to knock these jets though, because they're one of the most fun additions added to the game in a long time. I'm just relating what it feels like for tank drivers now. So let's take all these changes and think about them for a minute. Were they actually needed? I think the main intention was to make it easier for devs to change up numbers in the future, although I'd much rather their time be spent making much needed base changes. When HE tanks were originally nerfed, it was because of bad base design, low walls and open-sided towers. When thermals were nerfed, I'd put that down to bad base design as well. Not enough cover. There's still not enough cover, everywhere. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Balance changes should not be made until bases are designed better. Instead of these small nerfs which impact everyone's game, sometimes negatively, more time definitely needs to be spent on making the continents and their bases work first. With Indar and Amrish we saw a few good redesigns, but more is needed. I feel, and I know many others feel, that base and map design alongside performance is a priority in this game, not balance changes. So why aren't these problem continents and bases being worked on? Well, we have had an answer on this, and to quote Rel, who is a developer on PlanetSide 2, his But Why Indar video said this in simple terms. Working on a continent, redesigning and repositioning bases takes a lot of work and time. He explained that while these changes were taking place, no terrain bugs or glitches could be fixed. He also said that a lack of content or updates could result in the game being killed off. With the final thoughts being that even if they did undertake such a big project, they would still try to deliver with new weapons and additions to keep players interested, but the team is small and resources would indeed be stretched. Now that was a few months ago when we had those Indar base changes, a welcome sight to see in many cases. Moving forward, as you guys may know, we have some faction specific weapons coming. I believe we are getting 5 new weapons for each faction designed by Dooku. These are looking great, and it's fantastic to see weapons that fit with the original lore of the game. So we've definitely got great new weapons to look forward to. Hopefully we can get some nice redesigned bases to use them at. My thoughts currently, there are a lot of great games coming out which will take people away from PlanetSide. That is inevitable. As time goes on, people leave. The fact is there is still no game like PlanetSide 2, and that is what keeps people like me coming back. Does it need some good updates? Yes. Balance changes? Not so much. The game actually receives so many updates, it's kind of what my channel is known for, covering the updates. Now to tell the truth here, there's not many times over the past year when I've said, wow, that's a great update. The truth being that I would rather wait several months for a good update than just getting a good or alright update every month. This may not be good for my channel, but I think it would be better for the game. If players were made aware of the big changes coming, changes that they wanted to happen, then I'm sure we wouldn't mind waiting a little longer for them. Daybreak just need to keep us updated through the process, maybe a few live streams and posts on the website. At least then players could get excited for the changes to come, like most are for these new weapons. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video, my thoughts and the information supplied here. Make sure to leave any thoughts you have about Combined Arms or future changes in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.
Perfect harmony.